What's up, everybody? This is Shane from Ferocious Fatherhood here doing our 30 for 30 campaign. Today, I got my brother Johnny Francis on the line with me, all the way from Father's Eve up in Minneapolis. Johnny, welcome to the show, man. I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you, Shane. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, cool. So before we kind of get into this, I'd like to give our guests an opportunity to kind of introduce themselves, kind of, your background, your organization, what your childhood was like, kind of go from there. I really like to hear who our guests are, so that way there's people out there they can absolutely connect. So, spotlight's yours, man.
Well, thank you. I'm John Francis in the Twin Cities here in Minnesota, and I started a thing as an accident in my garage. It's called Father's Eve, and of course that's the night before Father's Day. So it's always on Saturday. And Saturday, it started out as a garage party. We moved back in the day and built a new garage in our house. And I wanted to show it off to my buddies, right? It's Minnesota. We love our garages up here, right? And so I had a nice garage with the floor drains and everything. And so I invited my buddies over, and my wife and I were looking at the calendar, and it was a busy summer, and I got 2 kids. And anyway, we kept flipping back when you flip pages in the calendar, and the only available night that I found was a Saturday in June, and it's like the only clear weekend night. And she's like, yeah, that's good. And so I said, well, we'll do it that night. And I turned the page and I said, oh man, the next day is Father's Day. And at first I'm kind of like, I want to hesitate, like nobody wants to go out, we're all going to be up early for Father's Day, and my kids are still little, but that was the only available night, like for weeks. And so I said, well, we're going to do it that night, and if it's the night before, we're going to call it Father's Eve. And so honestly, that's how it started. It was really an accident, a calendar, but we had a lot of fun getting it started, and I can go in and tell you more and more about it, but it caught on, and it just took off. And what I learned is, guys like to get together if there's an opportunity. And my friends, I guess I'm a connector, right? I have a lot of buddies, and I'm staying in touch with a lot of friends. What I take for granted, a lot of guys don't have. And so we found that this is a way for guys to get together and share and connect. We say connect, share, and celebrate fatherhood. So we turned it into just a good time to get together. There's no real program to it. We're not selling anything. We're not preaching to anybody. We're not solving anyone's problems. We're just get together and have some fun. And, one thing led to another. We wound up trademarking it. We raised a bunch of money for charity, and then we licensed it for free. So
that is so cool.
Crazy.
That's awesome.
We've been screwing around with it for about 10 years. And
wow.
Before COVID, the biggest year we had 60 cities host Father's Eve events. These are all volunteers. Nobody's paying anything. No one's doing anything. There's no economic model whatsoever. It's just there's a simple approach. And but yeah, Father's Eve. So I can share a lot more, but fatherseve.com is our website. We're on all the social and stuff. And
man, that's so cool. I mean, you're so right that as guys, we don't get together with other, strong men as often as we should. I know I certainly don't. I don't.
Well, and I like your brand, Ferocious Father. I mean, I love being a dad. It's the most important thing I'll ever do. And I try to do my best with it, my girls and my wife and everything else. And what Father's Eve has given me is a way to connect with other guys that feel the same way, right? They want to get together, and it's kind of an excuse, but really there's underneath it, there is some value, because we can learn from each other and connect with them.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the biggest things I was doing with this 30 for 30 is I realized, like, hey, I just need to start. I need to get out there just talking to people. I want to hear what they have to say. There's no monetary gain from that. Like, I just want to talk to people. Let's get the conversation going. Let's really
and we share what we do with other guys, and it has an impact, a ripple effect, and you never know kind of what can come from it. So you asked about growing up. I'm the youngest of 5 kids in my family. And so I was pretty lucky, actually. I was probably closest to my dad of the 5 kids. My dad had his own business, and he worked a lot. And So before I was born, the older siblings, he really wasn't around much. He was busy working and traveling and really committed to his business and his work. And it was hard on the family and hard on my mom. And so by the time I grew up, I'm the youngest there's 10 years between the oldest and the youngest. So
Okay.
by the time I showed up, things were already going and the business was pretty established. And so he and I think he realized that he missed a lot of my siblings, childhood. He didn't know them, or he didn't have the kind of relationship that he wanted. And I think he recognized it, thank God. And so with me as the last kid, we had a different relationship because he was more available, he was more intentional. And of course I didn't know anything. I mean, I'm just that, but as we got older and things go on, you realize that I'm the lucky kid, right? I was lucky to be the youngest. And I got to work close with him and spend a lot of time with him. And my dad died when I was 26.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's, he was only 60 years old. So he wasn't old, but it was cancer, and he fought cancer for a long time. And so there was a lot of stress in our family through that period where he was fighting cancer, and he did a great job. He lived longer than they expected. And but he was a great role model. He was a good dad. He did his best, and like I said, I think I got the most of him, I think, of any of my siblings, which I'm really grateful for. And then 3 years after he passed away, my brother, who was the oldest, he died in a car accident. So
oh, wow.
we were just kind of getting over my dad's passing, and then my brother dies in a car accident. And he was a dad. He had 2 marriages, 5 kids, and he was kind of wild, right? He was a lot of fun. My older brother, my only brother. I got 3 sisters. Between us. So he died, and that was a real, obviously unexpected, right? And so that changed a lot of things for our family, and again had kind of a ripple effect throughout. And so by the time I finally got over his loss, his passing, what I realized, and my mom helped me realize this, is I didn't want to get married because my dad and my brother weren't going to be there. Right?
Wow.
They weren't going to be part of it. Obviously, they weren't there. So I had just kind of pushed off the idea of getting married because I don't want to miss them, which is totally irrational, right? And so I finally got over that with my mom. It was a conversation with my mom, and she said, well, you can't just wait, you gotta. And I was dating this wonderful gal, and she's fabulous. And I said, yeah, I just got to go forward. And so we got engaged and we got married, and it was fantastic. Of course, I missed my dad and my brother, but they were with us in spirit, and we know that. And anyway, growing up, then we finally got married, and I finally had kids. And so I'm a late bloomer, right? I still have high school kids, and I'm 55. I still got a 15-year-old. So my youngest was born when I was 40. So whatever, you get what you get. And I'm happy. And but I wish I was 10 years younger. Let me tell you, sometimes chasing those kids around, it's not as easy as I'd like it to be. But
well, I don't know, because I mean, I'm 32 now. I got 2 kids, and I don't have. I'll tell you, with my first son. So with my son, he's 4. I mean, I definitely didn't have the wisdom at all.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
there is something to be said. I was probably better prepared to be a parent, and able to be more focused on my kids. And anyway, once the kids were born, and so I leaned, because I didn't have my dad and I didn't have my brother. I leaned on I have two in-laws, 2 brothers-in-law that are fabulous, and my father-in-law is fabulous. I mean, really, I got good family or friends around me. But I leaned on my friends and family to say, hey, what do you do with your kids? How do you handle this with your wife? Or how do you guys handle this when this happens at your house? How do you do these things? I couldn't talk to my dad and my brother.
right.
So I talked to everybody else who was nearby, and I got a lot of good advice. And I'm not afraid to ask for help, I guess, and learn from other people. And so the Father's Eve thing, even though it started as honestly an accident, what I did is I invited all my buddies over to break in that new garage. and what it turned into is me giving them like, thank you for helping me, right? For being around and helping me through all this real life stuff. And like I said, it was accidentally Father's Eve, but it caught on, and people were like, we love it. There's no women, there's no children. It was all guys. You know, we had like a keg of beer, a bag of chips, and the music was just a little too loud. It was perfect. You
Yeah,
know,
that's awesome. Guys
nothing
being
to
guys
do.
doing guy things.
It was awesome. Yeah. It was, so we and like I said, it caught on. They're like, we're coming back. We're doing this again. And I'm like, yeah, we'll do it again. And so we did it again, and it got bigger, and we did it again, and it got even bigger. The third year it was getting out of control because there were guys coming that I didn't know. And I thought, this is great. My buddies are bringing their other buddies, right? People want to connect. And so that's when the light bulb kind of went off. And I said, we got to do something with this. And so, like I said, we trademarked it. We've moved it to a restaurant bar because I couldn't do it in my garage anymore.
Right.
We started raising money and giving it away. So we're not a nonprofit. We're not a charity organization. The world is not telling me to start another charity. What we want to do is support other charities. So we're a fundraiser event, I guess, is technically what we are. And the idea is to do some good in the community. This year in 22, we're back after COVID shut us down. We went back to one event, back to my garage. But this year, I think we did it in about 25 cities. So we're still kind of getting back. But we added this year a community volunteer component. So during the day, Saturday, Father's Eve, during the day, we go clean up. Like we did a playground cleanup. We had about 10 guys, and we talked to the city, and we're like, we want to do something. They said, sure. There's a playground nearby. We all went over there, and we spent about 3 hours pulling weeds and, you know, sanding it down and spray paint. We got some paint and stuff, just fix it up, clean up the playground.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Nothing fancy, just easy. And then then after we go Father's Eve is, you know, we went back to we had a brewery, and we just, you know, we have the bags throwing and just hanging out and just nothing, you know, we're not, like I said, we don't sell anything. No one's big speeches or anything. The one thing we do though, that I think you'll like is, we do a countdown toast. So we decided that New Year's Eve, everybody knows, you know, you wait till midnight and you count down 10, 9, 8, you know, and the yeah, cheers.
Yeah.
So we do Father's Eve toast, but we back it up to 8 o'clock because I got to go home by 10:30. You know, I want to get up tomorrow. So we do a toast at 8 p.m. in each time zone across the United States. And we do a lot like this, a live stream, and people zoom in from all these different events every hour, right? So it's really kind of fun. We like with the East Coast, you know, all the guys from New York and the Carolinas and Florida and all up and down the East Coast. So we get on early. It's 8 o'clock for them, it's 7 o'clock for us. And then there's guys from all over the country. And they're hanging out in backyards, or they're hanging out in bars and restaurants, or they're just hanging out at wherever, you know, if you guys want to do this. And some of it's just one guy, like he's just hanging out, just wants to be part of it.
Yeah.
You know? So we get all these guys together, and then every hour we do this countdown toast, and it's like, yeah, Father's Eve, happy Father's Day, you know. And then I say we love Father's Day so much, and we love it, and we want to do so much with Father's Day, but we can't take anything away from it. So we added to it by creating Father's Eve the night before.
Man, that is so that story in of itself. I mean, we could turn that into like a whole thing. That is just so cool. That's so awesome. You're talking about finding it, you know, creating this kind of by accident.
Yeah.
I've turned what I do intentionally, but I mean, I started first with fatherhood. I was sitting in church, and on Father's Day, and they played a video, you know, tribute to fathers, but it showed fathers kind of being like real weak, like mowing the lawn and falling in a tub, and being good for falling asleep on the couch watching TV. And I was like, is that what? I looked at my wife. I was like, is that how you view me?
Yeah.
Like, no. I was like, all right, we can't be doing this. Absolutely not. Like, I mean, I'm not the baddest dude out there, but man, I'm not this. I'm not that.
You know, we believe that, you know, as much as I laugh at Homer Simpson, you know, he didn't do us any favors as an example of fatherhood, right? And I mean, people realize it's a joke, it's a cartoon, for crying out loud. But you know what? He lowered the bar for fathers. So anyway, we're trying to do what we can to get guys together and make it. What I've learned really from this whole thing is if we're just a little more intentional about showing up for your kids or taking care of your wife or being an example or just being a little more thoughtful about being the dad that you really want to be, setting the example for the community and the children around you, even if they're not your own kids. I've gotten compliments from my neighbors who said, thank you for what you do because my kids see that. I'm like, what am I doing? Well, it's unconscious, but if you can be a little more aware and a little more intentional, just a little bit, it really can make a big impact. So
absolutely, that ripple effect is so real. I mean, you put that out, and like you said, your neighbors see it, and then when they have kids, that little light bulb goes off in their head, and then they pass it on.
Yeah.
Man, that's so crazy.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. So let's get into some of these questions, man. So you said that your father passed away when you said 26, right?
Yeah.
So before that, were there any major lessons that you learned from your father? It sounds like he kind of learned a little bit with you being the youngest.
Yeah.
So it sounds like he was more involved with you. So what were some major lessons that you learned from your father?
He lost his dad when he was 12. So he didn't have much from his own dad, but his uncle became his father figure and became a mentor to him. And I guess what I learned from my dad was, hard work makes a difference. You might not be the smartest guy in the group, but man, you can work harder than as hard or harder than anyone else. That's an advantage you can control. So
absolutely,
he taught me work hard and enjoy it. Right? Not against, have the attitude or the mindset of I'm going to be successful because I deserve it. I'm going to earn it. And one way or the other. So hard work he was a great role model for me there. And then at the same time, balance. He, like I said, by the time I was growing up, he was able to take time and we took some family vacations. I mean, we did some things, and it wasn't all work anymore. It was now let's enjoy this. And so he showed me how to be intentional about spending time and creating those memories as a family. And so we've done a lot of that with my family and my kids. I guess what he taught me in the terms of dealing with people and business and stuff that I've been involved with, different things I've done is, you got to treat people with respect no matter who they are, and I'm always looking for what I call a win-win opportunity or a relationship. It's not give and take. I mean, it is give and take, but that goes back and forth. But I'm always looking for something that I can do where I'm going to get what I want, but so is the other people involved. They're going to get something out of it. So it's a win-win kind of attitude. And that I guess is a fundamental value that I learned early on. And I watched him do that in his work and his business and his life. And I've carried that on in really everything that I do. And I think that's why I'm doing this. It's just fun to share.
Yeah, that's really cool. So when, you talked about the hard work, would he take you with you in your business dealings? Did you get to see it, be right there in the room with him?
Oh yeah. A lot of times, sometimes it was physical, cutting trees or, taking care of stuff around the house, doing the work. And other times, it was, in business. And as I got older, I went to work and we had a family business and he was a hard worker, committed. And people knew it and people respect that. And it's like, well, I'm going to do the same thing. And I never let up, it's just you learn that and you ingrain that into your character. And then that's just kind of how you are. So I'm really grateful that he gave me those values,
That's awesome. Taking your kid along with you. They want to be, they don't want to be told what to do. They want to see what to do.
Yeah.
So
they may listen to what you say, but they watch what you do, and it's a bigger impact. They learn from experience more than anything.
I think I've talked with every single guest so far. They've all kind of said the same thing, that they take their kids with them. It's definitely something that we've ingrained. With my 4-year-old son, he's definitely old enough now. Like, hey Jeremiah, come on, we're going to the gym. You're going to see what working out looks like. All right, come on. After we're done with all his podcasts, I usually bring him in and him and I just shoot a quick little video so he can see what it is that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So
cool.
That's definitely cool. So you said you passed that on with your kids.
Do
they get to see the inner workings of Father's Eve and how you set that up?
Yeah, and I guess I drafted them to help with what they could. There isn't much that we do, but they helped me with. We used to do these giveaway things, these bags. It's like we'd get sponsors and donations from companies that we'd give away at our events,
Mhm.
and so I'd have them, organize that stuff and get it ready. I had them. I'm kind of old school, right? So we had a list of these cities, like all these different cities would start popping up. These guys are signing up, and I'm talking to them, and so they'd hear me making these calls at night. I'm talking to
Mhm.
some guy in Cleveland, another guy in Florida, another guy in Texas, and I'm making these calls and signing these guys and like, okay, here's what you got to do this and don't do this, and giving them the kind of the guidelines.
Right.
And so we took a map of the country, like a road map, a big US map, and I'd have them find and highlight the cities as they'd come in. So we had a big map on the wall, and hey, I got another one in Texas, and they'd go find Austin, and they'd look all over and they'd find Austin and they'd highlight Austin. So they'd make a map of all the cities, and then we bring that to our event, I guess, to take a picture of it or whatever. But it was something I could do that they could, have some fun. It would maybe a little bit of geographic lesson. Maybe they learn some things about states, and
Mhm.
yeah, they want to be part of it. And then when the event happens, I bring them in. I bring my wife and kids just to this kickoff so they can see what's happening, and they're there for about 15 or 20 minutes, and then it's like, okay, you kind of got to go. Like, this is
Right.
not for children. I mean, it's not crazy, frat party or anything. It's not like
Right.
that, but it's just not something. And then they get older, they're teenagers, man. They don't want to be around that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They're not interested anymore. But they do. I know they respect it. I know they appreciate it. They see what I do. They see how hard I work at it. They see me talking about it. We've got some media coverage. They see they get in. They got interviewed once
Oh,
upon a
that is
time by a
awesome.
news crew came over. These cameras are in our, and they're like, well, come on out, and meet the family. So they got some fun with that. It's fun for them to be, I guess, part of it as much as they can be.
Mhm. Man, that is so cool. Yeah, just having your kids get involved with the things that you get involved in, and then I mean, you're right. You just impart little bits of wisdom, and they soak that up. I'm finding that out with my kids. Like they soak that up. They love it.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to be careful. Someone told me earlier, and maybe one of your questions is some of the dad advice. One, I'll just drop this one because it's in my mind. Is
Yeah,
someone
please.
told me once, your kids are going to remember things,
Hmm.
and you don't know what that might be. You might think it's the lessons and the lectures and the points you're showing them, but oftentimes it's things you don't even know. And so be careful what you say and do when your kids are around, because they might remember some stuff that isn't maybe so good. You gotta be careful about creating those memories as much as you can, and then be smart about when you're even not trying. That's they're learning that, and they're going to remember those things too.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
impression you make on your kids, you never know where it's coming from or what they're
Mhm.
really going to remember. So if you can be intentional, that might help. So
Yep.
that's kind of where, I think that's part of my motivation. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really awesome here. I totally agree. I can remember tons of little pieces of advice that I just kind of picked up, and maybe some things unintentional that my dad meant to pass, didn't mean necessarily to pass down, but did anyway. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
kids, we absorb everything. All right. So what are some of the hardest problems that you faced as a father growing up with your kids?
Well, I would say when my kids were little, I didn't have patience. I didn't have the patience that I wanted. I found myself getting upset for the stupidest thing, and like, what am I doing? And I think it was my wife and some of my friends, who were, they'd see and they're like, who is that? That's not you. And I'd say to you're right. That's not me. I'm not an angry, hot-headed kind of. That's just not my style. So what was it? They were pushing my buttons or whatever they were doing.
Hmm.
But I learned to just say, I got to be more calm. I have to be more patient, more tolerant, more whatever. I don't want to be that angry dad. That's not me. And that's not who I want to be. So in the beginning, when they were, probably not little babies, but when they're old enough to start running around and doing things that I didn't want them to be doing it, I had to learn how to approach it a different way. So I learned patience, and I learned, I guess, how to be a little more calm and just deal with the issues or the problems or the things that were driving me nuts in a much more appropriate way. And I learned that was a real hard lesson. It didn't take me too long. I'm grateful that I got the awareness early enough that I corrected course pretty quickly. And because I think a lot of guys probably deal with the same sort of thing, and you just react, and then all of a sudden you're doing that all the time. And if you don't have an awareness or a willingness to change, you create that kind of pattern. And so I didn't want that. And so I was able to, I guess, learn and improve and work on it. But that was certainly one thing I learned.
Yeah, that patience is a huge thing. And then you can kind of like alter your mindset a little bit to where like, hey, this is bugging me right now. However, what am I getting? What positive is coming out of it?
Yeah.
So like, for example, right now, my son's having a real hard time at nighttime falling asleep. So, you go in there and you lay down with him. And the other night I was laying down with him for 3 hours trying to get him to sleep. It's like, yeah, but what did I gain? How cute was it that for an hour he sat there and he just held my finger?
Yeah.
Like those moments you never get back.
Yeah.
So it's so cool to hear that you're talking about patience, because that is also something I've heard from fathers kind of over and over again. So that is such a I couldn't agree with you anymore. That's one of the
I didn't have a need for it without the kids. I mean, the rest of my life, adult and everything, fine. But the kids, it was a whole new ball game with raising children, and so you got to learn some new things. And that was a big one for me.
Yeah, that I could not agree anymore. That's we face that, like I said, with my son trying to go to sleep and eating dinner. Now he's really developed, like he can really talk really well now. So at dinner time, he takes an hour and a half to eat. It's like, okay, yeah, but what are you missing? You're designed to do this. So what can you get out of this? Okay, I got to sit down and have an hour and a half influence on my son with no television, no phones, no phone calls, no work, no nothing. Those little things that will build, his and my relationship, farther down the road.
Yeah, that's great. It's true.
Yeah, it really is. So then what are some of the biggest problems kind of fathers in general face with doing your Father's Eve events? Do you guys get talking about, hey, what are you seeing here? What problems do you see? What solutions do we got? Kind of like what are you seeing?
Well, I guess I see modern day dads. I think it's getting better, generally speaking. When my kids were little, and I worked from home, and I'd push the stroller to the park and put the kids on the swings and stuff, and all the moms would be looking at you funny, like, those are your kids.
What are you doing? Yeah.
Where's your wife? I'm like, well, where's your husband? And so it was a little. I was maybe at the tail end of with the beginning of the the at-home dad, or where dads are. It's okay. People used to say, oh, it's nice you're with your kids. I'm like, yeah, well, where else would I be? What do you mean? Like that's some kind of special thing. So that's not the case today. I think the last 10 years we've all gone beyond that and realized that dads can be much more engaged and involved, and that's normal. It's good and it's healthy. And so I think that's gotten better. I think where dads sometimes miss is, they get so focused on work. I see a lot of guys that are just, they work and they want to work and they work and they travel and they're gone. And I don't think it's intentional. I think they're maybe, somehow they're overly motivated by whatever success they're reaching for. What they don't realize is what they're missing out on, and the impact that's not being made on their kids. Somebody else is making that impact on those kids.
Absolutely. That impact is still going to get made. It's just by who? It's
and by
you?
what? Right?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I think dads need to be, while we're all there, and dads can kind of do it now, right? It's a little easier, a little more accepted, and so that's great. But Now I think it's time for dads to really be that intentional, really
Hmm.
understand. It's not just helping out at home. It's for me, it's my number one priority
Yeah.
is trying to make life better for me and my wife and my kids. And
Hmm.
so that's why I think this connecting, Father's Eve becomes a connection point for dads and guys who maybe don't have enough opportunities to do that sort of thing. And I think it's a great excuse to come out and play and get together.
Hmm.
And, I say we're not really organizing anything. We don't have any like program or workshop. It's not like a retreat or anything. There's nothing to it. But what I do is that in our events is you get dads talking about like kind of what you're doing is, well, how did you do it with your kid?
Hmm.
I could tell you about teaching my kid to ride a bike and what I did well, what I might do differently, and kind of how it went. And then when it's your turn to teach your kid how to ride a bike, now you got some frame of reference.
Yeah.
Whether you use it or not is up to you. But so the idea is we get together, we guys tell stories about fatherhood, about being the
Hmm.
dad and what works and what doesn't work. Now my oldest is in college. So when she started going to college, I'm asking my buddies, man, what did you do when your kid went to college? What did you not do? What do you wish you would have done that you didn't do?
Hmm.
And those kind of questions. So that's because of the relationships created at Father's Eve. That's where I think some of these guys are able to share and connect and ask those kind of questions where
Hmm.
they might not have somebody they're close to. They might be like new to town or they don't have neighbors or friends or classmates or whatever. I'm lucky I've got my friends and family around me. So Father's Eve creates that opportunity, I think, where these dads, they can ask each other for help and they're not really asking for help, right? Guys don't want
Hmm.
to ask directions. They don't want help. But when they're telling stories, you're learning from each other. It's
Yeah.
kind of an unintentional or, nobody's nervous about that. It's just
Hmm.
fun to tell stories and share things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder how, so I read something a long time ago that men like to struggle together. So you talked
Yeah.
about how on the whole Saturday, you guys go out and you volunteer, you clean up a park, things like that. I
Yeah.
wonder how much does that open up the group to then, talk or,
Yeah.
you
Well,
guys
and
get on
you
that.
learn, you spend time with someone maybe you don't know,
Hmm.
but somebody organized it and you show up and volunteer. And by the end of those 2, 3 hours, I mean, these guys, you've learned
Yeah.
something.
Yep.
And then you go spend a couple hours, drinking beer and throwing the bags around and you get to meet them again, or you meet another
Hmm.
guy. And so, they become like real friends, real connections, and then I'll see you next year, man, if not
Yeah.
before, and
Yeah. And then they're like, hey, here's my number. Here's your email. Let's stay in touch.
that's right.
You have a kid that's 2 years younger. So when you start, facing these problems, let me know. Let me see
That's right.
how I can help you. That's awesome that you guys get together on that Saturdays and do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what dads need a little more of is the
Hmm.
connectivity. I mean, doing it yourself is great and doing your thing as a dad, but learning and sharing with each other, I think there's still room to grow that way.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. And then kind of like transferring that to your sons, you have to be, or your children in general. You have
Yeah.
to be actively engaged with them. I mean, how many times do you go out to eat now and you see, the mom's on the phone, dad's on the phone,
Oh,
every single kid's on their phone.
that kills me. I can't.
Man,
We don't tolerate that in my
yeah.
house. I mean,
Hmm.
we're all normal adults or whatever kids, but yeah, when you see it, I'll point it out. My kids and I play a game. Maybe this is kind of off the topic, but we play a game called "What's Their Story?" Like when we're
Okay.
bored somewhere, we're sitting at an airport waiting for nothing, killing time.
Hmm.
And we'll make up like, look at that guy walking over there. I'll say, well, he's just got back from seeing his mom, or he hates his job, and so he's trying to get a new job. We make total fabrication of
Right.
what's their story as a game, but it's funny to see. So we'll look at people around and like, oh, look at those two over there, and what's their story? Well, it's clearly that and we come up with some ridiculous fantasy of what they're dealing with or how they're dealing with. It's just hilarious. But what it does is it engages these kids. We're talking about each
Hmm.
these make up kind of made up stories, but it gets their creativity going,
Absolutely.
and they're not looking at their phones, and neither am I. Right? I mean,
Absolutely.
we're engaged, we're having fun. It's harmless. You know, we're not ripping on people, we're not cutting them down.
Hmm.
You know, we're just making up funny, silly, crazy kind of stories. And then we laugh. You know, we're laughing,
Hmm.
and people are like, "What are they laughing about?" Well, we're not watching a video. You know, we're
Yeah.
laughing about what we're talking about.
Yep.
So I think that is, I don't know, it's a funny little thing, but it's simple, but we've made it a lot of fun. And now my kids, we'll be sitting around and they'll say, "Hey, Dad, you know what his story is?" They'll watch some guy go by and they, "Oh yeah, what's his story?" And then they'll make up something, "Oh, he just got done with this or that," or it's just fun. We just make
Yeah.
fun of stuff.
I really like that. I'm gonna start incorporating that. Like we'll be out to dinner. I'm gonna start doing the same thing. Like, hey Jeremiah, what do you think's going on over there? And
Yeah,
yeah, that's really funny. I like that idea a lot.
yeah.
So then, what are some other ways that you stay actively engaged with your kids?
Well, I volunteer at their school a lot. Um, because I'm a work from home dad, and I run my own business, I have pretty decent flexibility. I mean, I can schedule my work most of the time. So I volunteer at school a lot, and I ran the dad's club at the school, right?
Oh, okay.
My kids went to private school, so they didn't have much. The moms kind of run the school where I am. And so I'm like, well, what about the dads? And so we created a father's club, or a men's club, they call it. And we just do activities around the school. We volunteer at the school. We show up at the events. I got turned on to a couple of groups. I don't know if you're aware of these. I'll just drop them here. One is called the All Pro Dad Program. It's out of Tampa, Florida. It's a school breakfast program. We did the
Oh,
like donuts with dad kind of thing. We did it on
okay.
Fridays, and so you get as many dads as could. They'd come to school early, and we'd have a little slideshow, and you watch a video, and there's a little discussion thing, and some exercises about, you're introducing your child to the other dads. And there's this pride exercise where, I would say, "Hey, this is my daughter, Lily, and I'm really proud of her because, she did this and this and that," some real specific. And you should see these kids just fill up, they are
Oh, that's.
being, it's a powerful, because I'm introducing her to the other dad, and then
Hmm.
he's introducing his kid to me, and the kids might know each other, but the dads didn't know each other.
Hmm.
But by the end of that breakfast, everybody knew each other, and it's powerful. So All Pro Dad is a program out there that I got a hold of it, and I brought that through the school into my kids' school. And then there's another program in schools called the Watch Dogs, DOGS.
Okay.
And I think it's Dads of Good Students, or it's an acronym. But I talked to those guys, and I got a hold of the guy who runs it. I'm like, "This is great. Can we be part of this?" And so he brings dads into the school one day, every day. There's a dad volunteer, and they run a whole program. It's organized. It's just great to see the dads get engaged at school. So that's where one thing I've tried to be intentional about is volunteering at their school. And now they're older and it's high school, and so it's a little different now.
Hmm.
But that's something that I think it was important to me, and I'm glad I was able to do it. And those programs I found were very helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it sounds like we got talking earlier about how school is going to influence your kids, but now you get an opportunity to influence school, and then
Exactly.
so it that boomerang effect. You influence them, and then they influence your kids. That's pretty cool to hear. I'm gonna have to definitely look into those two programs as my kids start growing up. I think
Yeah.
that's
Oh, yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. All right, Johnny, I'm gonna start wrapping this up. However, I want to hear one last piece of advice. Anything we
Sure.
haven't covered? I mean, what you got?
Love your wife. You know, I think kids, they learn relationships by example, and the example that is at home, your husband and wife, your parenting. Um, you got to be an example. Now, we're not like real romantic. We're not a lot of it's not physical, but it's respect, right? We respect each other. We listen. We talk. If we argue, we try not to, and if we do it somewhere else,
Yeah.
not around the kids. I don't want to hear that. I don't want them to hear some of that stuff that, you've got to go through stuff once in a while, but
Mhm.
love your wife, be careful about the example you're setting for them. And I've got daughters, so what I've learned is they're going to watch what I do with their mother, and that's who they're going to look for in
Yeah.
their relationships. Is so I'm trying to be that example. I'm helpful, I'm intentional, I'm respectful. That's important. I guess one other idea is coming through my head is someone gave me this advice, and I think it's really fabulous, is parent the child you have, not the child you might wish you had.
Mm,
Uh,
that's a big one. Yeah.
every kid's different, right? I've got only two and I love them, but they're different and they have different
Mhm.
needs and different situations and they see things differently. And so parent your child that you have, because every kid needs what they need. And it might not be the same as your other kid or the neighbor's kids or your nieces and nephews or other kids in your life. Everybody's unique, everyone's different, but you got to parent the child you have.
Mhm.
And don't complain or don't compare. The phrase I've heard is that comparison is the thief of joy, right?
That's a good one. Yeah.
If I didn't write that, but it's some kind of Confucius thing or something,
Mhm.
Chinese fortune cookie thing, but it's true. I might
Mhm.
I might not have the greatest car in the world, but it's my car and I like it. It's fine. But when I start comparing it to my neighbors or somebody else, and there's always somebody with more and better, and you start comparing things, you lose the joy of what you do have. So
Absolutely.
I really try not to do that. And if I catch myself or I catch my kids, doing that kind of unconsciously, I try to say, really, does it matter? Look at
Mhm.
what you are, look at what you have, look at what, you're good the way you are. It's perfect. You
Mhm.
just got to appreciate what you have and who you are and the life that we have. We're so lucky Americans, I mean, what we take for granted, and so anyway, those are a couple of tips I guess I could share.
Yeah. So you're talking about the relationship with your wife. That is huge. I think you're the first person who's actually brought up a fatherly piece of advice that didn't involve the kids. And
Yeah,
you're spot on there. What they see in you is what they're going to expect. So what your daughters see in you is what they're going to expect when they then go to have husbands, and
right.
then they're going to see, okay, this was the standard that my father set. Does this man measure up? And I like that's so important.
Yeah,
Like I,
and I'm trying to set a reasonable bar. I'm nobody special, man. I don't have any a gift or anything. I'm just a regular guy doing my best.
hmm
And I think they see that and they get that.
hmm
But you got to try. You have
yeah,
to try.
that relationship with the mother of their child, even if you're not with the mother, like that
Yeah,
relationship is huge. You have to
yeah.
treat them with
It's got to
respect.
be respectful.
And
It's
then you also have to treat yourself with that respect, because you can't that your kid's going to see, they're going to learn from you how to treat themselves. if
exactly.
if they
It's
see
true.
you out there, you know messing around, not
Yeah.
learning, not growing,
Well,
that's
they're
exactly
doing
what they're going to do.
stupid shit. Yeah, they do. They learn whether you realize it or not.
Yeah.
You're making those impressions all the time, like we talked about. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm just grateful. I feel lucky, that
Yeah.
I'm able to do and behave, I guess. And I'm
Hmm.
certainly not any better than anyone else, man. I make plenty of mistakes, and I'm
Yeah.
sure I'll
Right.
continue. But I guess it's just an awareness that every once in a while I stop and check, like, really, what's going on? Why am I doing
Hmm.
this? Maybe I
Hmm.
should be doing that. And so then I'll go do that. And
Hmm.
somehow, I think it helps.
Yeah. Well, Johnny, thank you so much for being on. I loved hearing all the wisdom that you shared. You're definitely on the right. You're definitely crushing it out there. So I want to say thank you for being here, and thank you for telling all the folks and putting out your wisdom.
Well,
Um,
thank you, Shane. I
yeah.
appreciate you and appreciate the opportunity to share what I can. And I appreciate what you're doing. The Ferocious Fatherhood, I think it's a great brand. And, we can all help each other. We can all learn from each
Absolutely.
other. It's a big world out there and you don't have to be alone. You
Hmm.
can, so I'm a big advocate for that kind of thing. And yeah, I appreciate the chance to just tell my story and people are interested. Again, it's all pretty much on the website,
Hmm.
fatherseve.com. There's no apostrophe. Sometimes people get we call it Father's Eve because it's for all the dads. It's not a possessive, it's a plural if you're into the
Okay.
grammatical thing, but
Okay.
Father's Eve, and I'm easy to find, John Francis, Minnesota. You can Google my name, I'll probably pop up somewhere, but it's I love talking. I talk to people all day long. It's I'm not afraid of answering the phone, so
Awesome.
happy
Awesome.
to be out there.
All right, Johnny. Well, thank you very much. I really do appreciate it, brother. Take care. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right. See ya.